welcome to the Red and Blissful Show, wellness life hacks for an extraordinary life. I'm your host, Ilona Barnhart, artist, yogi, mindfulness teacher. I intend to use this platform to spark conversations around all things wellness, mindfulness, yoga, self-awareness, self-love, self-care, meditation, manifestation, cutting-edge new technologies, and all sorts of goodies. Today, I want to talk to you about the book that I'm getting back into, which is The Four Agreements. It's my second time rereading it, and I'm not going to talk to you about the whole entire book, but just the intro, because as I started reading it, I was shocked at how many things just jumped out at me in a completely new way. Because I'm in such a different place than I was from the first time reading this book, which wasn't even that long ago. Maybe it was over a year ago. I've been seeing the Four Agreements for quite some time throughout my life. I would see glimpses of it, and I was always a little intrigued, but never actually got the book myself until a student actually, we sparked the conversation up about it, and she got me a whole box, a full set of Don Miguel Ruiz's books, and it's been an incredible gift the student gave me. So very appreciative and love it. But read it the first time, this time around, whoa! And what jumps out at me the most is in the intro is this, that Don just jumps right into social conditioning, which we often don't talk about, but it's something that impacts us so much. It literally impacts how we show up in the world on a regular basis. And Don coins this concept of human domestication and how the people in power gain power by creating sheep in society. Because they don't want the wolves and the lions that think for themselves, that rebel, that are the individuals. And training kids to be wolves and lions in society versus the lamb that follows the orders is quite challenging. But he just brings it up and brings it to awareness and allows us to potentially notice the patterning, noticing where social conditioning is no longer serving you as an individual in your life. Love it. And one of the other reasons why this concept of social conditioning or human domestication, as he calls it, is so important is because by the age of 7, some believe it's 14, that the entire subconscious is downloaded. Right? So let that sit in. By the time you're 7 or 14, around that time range, your entire subconscious is downloaded. And from what I learned from Dr. Kathy Collette, is that the subconscious is 97% more powerful than the conscious mind. So you might be thinking, like, what does that mean? Basically, if I desire something and want to bring it to fruition in terms of like manifesting or just wanting for things to work out in a certain way, if in my subconscious, on that energetic subconscious level, my programming is saying no because of limiting beliefs that have been imprinted on me when I was younger, then that won't happen because my subconscious is way more powerful than my conscious mind. The way to bring the conscious mind in alignment with what your conscious desires and thoughts are is by doing the work. First, recognizing the patterns, doing work around them, and then being released from them. I'm sure you've heard this phrase that it isn't that you know that you've done work around something is when the situation itself doesn't change, but your perception does. What? And then you're in that empowered state of being able to make a choice from whether staying in that situation or not knowing necessarily yet what to do, but just being informed and empowered and taking full responsibility for your actions and where you're at in life. So one powerful quote in Don's book, circling back to social conditioning is, and I read, "The only way to store information is by agreement. If we don't agree, we don't store that information. As soon as we agree, we believe it, and this is called faith. To have faith is to believe unconditionally." And he goes to say that as children, we believe adults, like everything they say. We are not strong enough to rebel against them. In this way, this imprints beliefs or agreements about our self-worth. Remember, it's a subconscious that says, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And here's the danger, right? Our normal tendencies that don't get nurtured as children, but in fact we are told to do otherwise, to step in line and become the sheep so that we could be functional society, people in society, whatever that means, is that our authenticity, our authentic self, our voice is lost. And our authenticity is what connects the universe. It's what co-creates. It literally moves mountains with the universe to bring your innermost desires about. It's what creates your life. So it would behoove anybody and everybody to do work around the wounds and the healing that has happened when you were younger. But that's what all therapy is about, right? And then he, just going back to what Don's talking about, is that we then become the domesticator, because that's what we learn. We learn to be domesticated, and then we become the domesticator, and not necessarily in terms of propagating it in our children, which that also happens, but that we actually punish ourselves because we're the domesticator if we don't line up to the belief systems, the limiting belief systems, if I dare say so myself. Typically they're limiting beliefs. We punish ourselves. So there's a ton of people walking around with so much guilt and shame and weight about agreements that they themselves didn't necessarily make consciously. Wowzers. All right. I believe it's the separation from the authentic self that the universe wants to get back us to, because that's when it communicates to us, and that's when it gets to show off its power as well. So the universe will send us situations, relationships, and things in hopes that we'll get triggered, because triggers are red flags for old wounds that just desire and crave to be healed. Right? I mean, it's really that simple. So whenever you are in a certain situation or a relationship, in particular with relationship, like the mirroring back is just, whether it's platonic or intimate, the relationships just mirror things back to us. So it's this growth spurt that happens when people enter into a relationship. But whenever you are triggered, it literally signifies that there is a wound. And if you have the mindfulness tools or the self-awareness to take a pause, step back, and notice, hey, there's a trigger. I'm being bitchy, or I'm reacting in a shitty way, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, I'm snappy. There's a wound here. There's something here that wants to be healed. Then you could potentially do the work around it, get to the root of it, notice it, and then the pattern breaks. Once the pattern breaks and you're in that space that the situation doesn't change, but you have changed, your perception has changed, so ultimately everything has changed. Because when you change, the world around you doesn't change, it's just the way that you look at it changes. And so then the way that you look at the world, if the way that you look at the world changes, the world around you changes. Another Instagram quote. Is when you notice that that's happening, that's when you are beginning to become a magnet for your innermost desires. And like I mentioned earlier, it's literally when you and the universe are going to begin to co-create the reality that you desire. And whenever you're not feeling in the flow, or there's things that you consciously desire and want, but no matter what, it's just barely outside of your grip, it's literally because your subconscious is saying no, not worthy, not good enough, just no. Which that powerhouse is way stronger than your conscious mind. So oftentimes if there's things that are not manifesting in the physical realm, even though they're coming from our truest essence, is because there's some stuff going on the subconscious level that energetically is telling the universe no. That's why I love and was so taken back by Don's introduction, and he literally just dives into social conditioning, which I thought was totally fascinating. I had to pause, write about it. As you see, this is my stream of consciousness that I just literally vomited out onto you, which I plan to do a lot more in the most proverbial way possible. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions about anything that I just mentioned or anything like that, leave them below. I can give you a ton of resources, places that I've learned about all this different stuff, and posted in the Facebook group, the Red and Blissful Club.